Top of the morning. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Hope everything is going well. It's hump day. We made it halfway, I guess. I guess depends on your job. That's totally cool. But it's another day, another time we're going to be going through Am I the Asshole, which is my new favorite thing. Um, not going to give too much preamble today, but my mind, what's going on? But basically, this is the first time I'm reading through any of these. I'm going to go through how I would process them as a coach and a counselor and sort of give you my thoughts and my feedback. My background's as a child and youth worker, not as a doctor, so I'm not really focusing like this. I'm not really focusing too much on a diagnosis, although it'll come up a bit, but I'm not approaching it as a doctor, just more how I would work with the situation. But if you have any questions about that, let me know, and I'm happy to help connect to the right resource. With that, we're going to be jumping right in today. Again, first time reading through these, I have no idea what I'm about to jump into, other than I see this fantastic title of Am I the Asshole for Punishing My Son for Bringing Up Private Family Matters at Thanksgiving that led to family drama. Now, I'm not sure if they're the asshole, but let's find out together. My son is 12 years old with autism and ADHD. He's the middle child of 5 kids. Okay. By the way, for anybody, this I do know, it's not uncommon for that sort of dual diagnosis. It's very interesting, actually. We planned our Thanksgiving dinner a couple of months ahead and invited our relatives over for Thanksgiving. My son is very socially inept and doesn't understand his actions might be considered hurtful, rude, or inappropriate. And I'm working with his therapist and his school on how to behave in social situations. Way to go for getting the right support. To make a long story short, it started off as a debate with one of his 5 cousins at dinner and mentioned an unknown woman by name, and when I pressed him on what he's talking about, he stated that his uncle, which is my sister's husband, brought a random woman in our house when I asked him last minute to look after the kids when I was called for work. I stopped him from speaking any further, and knowing this was going to lead to an argument between adults, I had to send all of the kids upstairs to their bedrooms. I tried everything I could to de-escalate the situation and keep the peace. I wanted to make sure that any grievances are held off until after dinner. It quickly devolved into screaming matches and crying. I had no idea he was having affairs, and I was mad that he was bringing a woman in our house with children, and I tried to hold off until after dinner because I was trying to keep it positive. I was really mad and told the uncle he's not welcome back. I told my son that private adult matters should be kept private and that he can't talk about these things out loud in front of the whole family and all the children. And he shouldn't be bringing up sensitive topics. He brought up his sister's personal trauma without permission at the dinner table. And because he couldn't keep his mouth shut, I took away his video games, his phone, his computer, TV until the new year. Oh my God. My son cried and said that he didn't know the matter was private and that he wasn't supposed to say anything. I chalked it up to common sense. I know the affair wasn't his fault and that wasn't the problem. The problem was that he discussed the affair publicly and failed to tell me or his dad that his uncle was bringing a woman in our house, which was a month ago. I feel like I was too harsh on my son. Reddit, am I the asshole? Punishments are a very sensitive topic in the parenting community, and I think it's actually a very important thing to talk about because we're often very quick to lead with aggressive, harsh punishments on our children, and it's often based on a purely emotional response. I know parents spanking. It's like, oh no, I'm so angry at this kid and I need to let my anger out somehow, so I'm just gonna like wail on my child for a bit. Now, spanking is a whole other topic, but I think that idea of punishing is similar here, where in this case, there's a sensitive topic that was brought up, and it wasn't, she didn't take away the video games when he brought up his sister's trauma. She took away the video games and the computer and the TV when all of this family drama was started. So interestingly, to children, especially children who might be on the spectrum or have, a diagnosis of ADHD, it might not be so clear to them like where the line is drawn. This is not like a clear cause and effect necessarily, other than you say something sensitive, you get in trouble, which could be good and bad. Sometimes it's important to tell the truth, right? A lot of times. And sometimes it might have been better to maybe have that conversation in private with mom, as opposed to at a table with everyone. Now, with that, are they the asshole for punishing? Were they too harsh on their son? 100%. Every day is a new day. It's like, forget about autism and ADHD. With any teenager or preteen, you're not taking things away for 2 months. That's wild. Um, that's too far, and you're going to get a lot of other behaviors that you're probably also going to punish in those 2 months, and it's going to become this really messy power struggle, and back and forth for 2 months. And that's during like holidays, that's during other family dinners. What else are you going to take away when he does it again, right? Doesn't make sense. Maybe a day, say like, okay, like we need to take the time to talk about it, and work with your therapist at school to understand who it's appropriate to share tough topics to. That might be a good conversation. But that kind of punishment is wild to me, especially because if it happens again, which it likely will in the next 2 months, during Christmas, if it happened at Thanksgiving, then what else are you going to take away, right? So I think that's important. And not that you should take anything away. I usually don't believe in taking things away unless there's like harm to self or others. And even if you do take something away because, let's say another family member at the table said, if you do that, you're not going to get to watch TV. Follow through, and then tomorrow's a new day. Restate the rules together. Like today I'm going to be nice to my friends. Today, what does being nice mean? Well, that means I'm polite. I say please and thank you, so on and so forth. I don't grab, so on and so forth. And then the next day is a new day. You got to give children and preteens, especially those with diagnoses, an infinite chance to try again and learn, right? And in this case, you were just taking out the drama on your kid. So, I think we're all learning, and I can see why that would be a frustrating thing to go through. But yeah, I think you were way, way, way too harsh on your son. I'm going to leave this one open and answer it after, because I think it's interesting. Recently, I discovered that, is it still open? Perfect. That I've been only going to the hot ones and not the new ones, and this is interesting as well. So let's go ahead. These are ones that are posted really recently. So the one before was 5 hours ago. This is 5 minutes ago. So this is a hot and fresh topic. So, am I the asshole for asking my girlfriend to vacuum? I, 24-year-old female, live with my girlfriend, 23-year-old female. Before I met her, I lived with my ex, and the reason I left him was because I felt more like a maid/mom than his girlfriend, which resulted in me not being attracted to him anymore. My girlfriend and I have been living together for about 8 months now. I have a part-time job at school. She stays home due to some personal issues. Chores are usually about 50-50. Neither of us feel like we're doing too much, and we ask each other for help when we need help. Way to go. My girlfriend is depressed, and lately it has been worse. The house is also getting worse, and because I don't have all the free time, I made a list of chores. It was a total of 9 chores. I did 6 of them and asked my girlfriend to do the other 3. This was a few days ago. One of the chores was vacuuming. It might be worth mentioning that I have chronic back pain and I have an arm injury from sports, so vacuuming sounds like literal hell right now. I really don't want to live in a dirty house, and I absolutely refuse to be the maid/mom again. Today, a couple days later, she hasn't done any of the 3 chores, so I asked her about it. She immediately got mad. Said she was super stressed and she couldn't do it. She locked herself in a room and doesn't want to talk to me. I'm afraid I will fall into a slippery slope when I do the remaining chores instead of her, aside from the physical pain I would get from vacuuming. An actual maid is not an option financially. Am I the asshole for asking my girlfriend to vacuum? Okay, very good. So, excuse me. So, essentially, we have a couple, one of whom was in a relationship where they had to be the maid/mom type character, and this new relationship, they each have sort of normally equal chores. The new girlfriend has fallen into a deeper depression than usual, and the house is getting worse. The original poster has back pain and isn't able to vacuum, and the new girlfriend is struggling to do anything really. No thank you to this promotion of my channel, but I appreciate it. But maybe I'll check it out after. Back to this. Today, a couple days later, she hasn't done any of the 3 chores. So when we pick a battle, it has to be a battle we can win. Just pure, plain and simple. If you're looking at something purely from a behavioral standpoint. And previous to this, even when we were looking to the mom and her son, she picked a battle that she won't in the future be able to win. Holding off on TV and video games over 2 months. That's wild. Here, we have somebody who's struggling to get out of bed, and you're like, but you can't vacuum though? This is going to be problematic. But I can understand too that you don't want to fall into the same trap as you did in the last relationship. That's also not fun. The way I would approach this is as such. I would, I would focus on smaller tasks with your girlfriend, like let's get out of bed and take a shower, which is more important. Ultimately, with our partners, vacuuming takes the sidelines when their health and their safety matters more. Sometimes people with depression, and I'm not sure that this is the case, and I would ask these questions. Are we struggling to take medication if medication is involved? Are we struggling to take a shower? Are we struggling to go outside for a walk? Because those might be really difficult for somebody with depression, let alone like the jump between getting out of bed and vacuuming, right? And taking chores. If you're unable to take care of yourself, it's often difficult to take care of the house you're in. Now, I understand you have back pain. So what I would say in the short term is, ask, is there family or friends who can help in the meantime? Come over, help vacuum once every week or so, just while your girlfriend is picking herself back up. And during that time, I would say, focus on self-care things first. Things like going to take a shower, or things like, getting out of your pajamas and putting on, day clothes, going for a walk. Things that are less of a jump. I know it seems to a lot of us like vacuuming isn't such a big deal, especially if you don't have an injury, right? And the chores, you're doing 2/3 of the chores already. But that's how I would approach it, I think. But I think those questions are important. Is there danger of harm to self or others? Are they able to take care of themselves? If not, which is usually the case for somebody who isn't getting to the point of doing chores and taking care of their house, I would suggest focus on self-care first. Ask for help from immediate resources like family to help with the chores, and then, help build them back up. Help them to get therapy, help them to, got a frog in my throat, help them to even get out of bed and take that shower. I think that's the battle I would pick long before vacuuming. Let's take a look at another one. These are super interesting today. I'm going to go back to this new because I want to answer what's hot and happening, right? Fanta Mentos, that's a great idea. Okay, let's do this. Am I the asshole for being grumpy? Oh, did I miss one? Let's see. I think I missed one. Oh, here we go. Am I the asshole for making a big deal out of my friend telling me all of my arguments are bad? It's a loaded question. My friend just told me it feels like you live in your own little bubble and you believe so much in what you think. You have no idea what you know and do not. You actually have no idea why you think that way. And when you peel back those reasons, you find out your reasoning is faulty. That's a long sentence. Run-on sentence. It made me feel incredibly stupid and I was really hurt. I spent the rest of the night crying and questioning if everything I believe is dumb with no real reasoning. Is this a valid feeling, or am I being a bad friend for making a big deal out of it? Was he actually trying to help, or was this a personal attack? For more context, we have arguments about political things. He is into Jordan Peterson and Dave Shapiro, whilst I lean more left. He also said he was drinking at the time, but it felt like something he'd been wanting to say for a long time, but bottling it up. He was often commented on my intelligence and said he thought I was smart, and this all felt like lies afterwards. Often our arguments aren't super in-depth, like bringing up facts and articles, but this suddenly felt different, and he started saying I was using fallacies, and ultimately said this. I'm just going to cough for a moment. Oh, allergy season, am I right? Okay, so whenever things seem this broad to me, when I'm reading somebody's journal or I'm talking to somebody, I want to ask questions about like, what are they doing? Are they going to work? Are they stuck? Because usually broad things can also be more severe things, like big existential thoughts. Not always, but that's like a question I would ask. Like, are they able to go out? Like, what are they doing at that time? And depending on how their conversations go, I would start to assess risk and help access resources. In terms of these political conversations, I think he means Ben Shapiro, not Dave Shapiro, but um, yeah, I can imagine that if you have a friend who's really into Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro and you're left leaning, you're having arguments all the time, and that could be fun. People like those intellectual debates. A lot of my own friends do as well. I'm really more of a lefty than a Ben Shapiro-y. I think he's trash, if I'm going to be honest, but I'd love to have a conversation with him one day. Um, but your friend said something mean and says that you're stuck in a bubble, and this upset you, and it should upset you. Often in political conversations, when it gets to a point where you're really, really clashing, people tend to say personal things that are painful and might not have any basis in reality or truth. And he also said he was drinking, and we know the truth juice makes things happen a little more. So what I would say is that I would have a conversation in a fresh day with this friend about what he said and how what he said was hurtful to you. That you enjoy having those intellectual conversations, but that it doesn't feel good when intellectual conversations become a personal attack, because that's not the point of an intellectual conversation. The point of an intellectual conversation is to hear both sides, battle things out a little bit, and learn. And I think it's really cool actually that you have a friend who is totally on the other side of the spectrum and that you're able to sort of see both extremes of an argument. Now, I will say you might want a third friend in there because extreme left and then Ben Shapiro are very, you might want a moderate person in between, like moderate politically so, but that would be my advice here. Let's take a look at one more today. We'll hit four. I think we have the power. I'm gonna do one more hot ones. Anybody watch that show? That show is so good. Okay. Am I the asshole for asking my husband to skip his family's annual Christmas party? Great. I, a 31-year-old female, so my husband's 31-year-old male. That's hard to say. I understand why it works that way in writing, but that's fine. My 31-year-old female husband's 31-year-old male family does a Christmas party every year, usually the weekend before Christmas. This year they're doing it Christmas Eve, since the holiday falls on a weekend. A couple days ago, I got the group text asking what time works before for everyone, since his parents, dad and stepmom, had their church services from 4 to 6. They asked if 7 p.m. start was too late, or if they should plan something in the afternoon before church. I usually don't respond to anyone's group texts and just go with the flow, but since we have a 3-year-old, I text my father-in-law separately and let him know we would really rather do the afternoon sometime, since the party starting at 7 seems late, especially for little kids. He and his wife originally agreed with me, the majority of everyone else, since we all have smaller children. In the group text, one family had mentioned that they wanted to do 7 p.m. so their 3-year-old doesn't have to miss his nap. Well, folks, they decided to compromise, and now the party is at 6:30 for Christmas Eve. I asked my husband if we could skip it this year and just do something at home with our son. He told me I was welcome to stay home, but that he is taking our son to the party. My husband doesn't think it's fair to our son to miss out on family time because I'm being dramatic and controlling, and that I'm an asshole for even asking. So am I the asshole for asking if we can stay at home this year? Well, my friend, I don't think you're an asshole for asking that question. I think that's a valid question. I think everybody in the family was fine to have the afternoon except for one family. The parents didn't want to make a big deal, so they compromised for 6:30. Okay, it is what it is. But for your husband to jump to dramatic and controlling for having this conversation, that's a different kettle of fish. I'd want to know a bit more about your relationship. Like, how are you often dramatic and controlling? And I use that, for anybody just listening, heavily in air quotes, because this is a reasonable question. You have, how old is this son? They have a 3-year-old son. Of course, you don't want to have a late Christmas party. That's like standard engagement, and especially a lot of the other family does too. So I would say it would make sense to ask that question. So I don't think it's wrong, but I want to know, where else in your relationship does your husband feel like you're dramatic and controlling? Are those real, or is this like a gaslighting kind of situation? The second I see like a reasonable question asked and somebody's like, well, you're just being controlling. To me, that's like at least an orange flag, usually a red flag behavior. And I want to know more about that. I can understand the stress around skipping a family Christmas party, especially since it's tradition, but family dynamics change when everyone has small children. That's just like life. Like that's a standard state of events. And maybe you can have people over to your place in the afternoon and then they can do something in the evening. I mean, that's not a big deal. And truth be told, if you're having a late Christmas party with young children anyways, they're either going to be bouncing off the walls due to all the sugar and then crashing hard at 9, and then you're all going to have to be quiet while they nap. So it's not necessarily more functional to do it that way. So my point is, you're not the asshole for asking to stay home. I think your husband's an asshole for calling you dramatic and controlling when it seems like you're just trying to have, a standard conversation. I think that's fine. That's going to be all for today, folks. That's all, folks. I want to thank you all for joining the stream. If you or anyone you know is looking for some coaching, I run a company called The Journal That Talks Back. We offer unlimited and accessible coaching for young professionals, although we coach everybody. You can go to our site, thejournalthattalksback.com, click the book a call button, and I'll be right there on the other side to have an intake call with you and either match you with one of our own coaches if our resource is a good fit, or help to match you with another resource too, if that makes more sense. It's been a pleasure. I'm going to be on tomorrow bright and early again. Sorry for the late start today. And we'll see you on the flippity flop.